If you think like this, money may even enter your life, but it will never stay. You can work hard. You can have talent. You might even get lucky for a while. But if your mental pattern is this, the result will always be the same. It comes in and it goes out. Andrew Carnegie understood something almost no one wants to admit. Wealth is not an event. It is a sustained pattern. And certain mental patterns push money away before it even has the chance to take root. Today I'm going to show you exactly which thoughts guarantee that money will never remain with you. If any of them sound familiar, pay attention. When I earn more, I'll organize my life. This is the first fatal mistake. The belief that organization comes after income increases. But observe the real pattern. Those who don't control little, don't control much. If today you don't know exactly how much comes in, don't know exactly how much goes out, avoid looking at numbers. Make decisions impulsively. More money only amplifies the disorder. Carnegie used to say that wealth begins with control, not income. If you think money will teach you discipline, you are reversing the order. Discipline is what makes money stay. I deserve to enjoy it now. Be careful with that phrase. It sounds healthy. It sounds balanced. It sounds like self-care. But often it is just impulse wrapped in emotional justification. You work. You strive. You earn a little more. And immediately you upgrade your lifestyle. There is no retention. There is no structure. There is no construction. Carnegie prioritized asset expansion before comfort expansion. If every income increase becomes a spending increase, money never stays. Money is risky. This mindset is silent. It doesn't shout. It doesn't look destructive. But it paralyzes. If you associate money with fear, conflict, guilt, or excessive risk, you create unconscious resistance. And what you resist does not remain. Carnegie saw money as a leverage tool. Tools are neutral. But if you believe money is something dangerous, your mind will find ways to get rid of it. I wasn't born for this. This thought limits you before you even try. Carnegie was born poor, an immigrant, without structural privilege. But he refused the idea that origin defines ceiling. If you think wealth is for another type of person, your behavior will never be consistent enough to sustain it. Because deep down, you don't believe you belong at that level. And no one sustains what they believe they don't deserve. I already tried. This sentence is an emotional trap. You saved for a few months, invested for a year, studied for a few weeks, and didn't see immediate results. So you conclude, it doesn't work. Carnegie understood that the early years don't look like progress. They look like sacrifice. Wealth is the result of repetition, not isolated attempts. If you treat discipline as a temporary experiment, money will never build a foundation. I need to look successful. This is one of the most expensive thoughts that exists. The need for external validation. Car before capital. Status before structure. Appearance before assets. Carnegie invested in productive capacity before investing in image. Those who try to look rich before becoming financially structured. Live sustaining a facade. And facades are expensive. If it fails, I'll quit. Exit mentality. If you enter any project already planning your escape, your commitment will never be total. Wealth requires continuity, not perfection, not genius, but permanence. Carnegie went through crises, mistakes, and pressure, but he did not operate in if it doesn't work, I'll abandon it mode. If you always keep the exit door open, you never build something large enough for money to stay. I work hard, so I deserve to earn more. The market does not pay for effort. It pays for value generated. Carnegie did not accumulate wealth just by working hard. He built systems. If you believe isolated effort guarantees financial retention, you will be frustrated. Money remains where there is efficiency, strategy, structure, and leverage, not just effort. I'll deal with it later. Procrastination is the fuel of scarcity. I'll organize later. I'll invest later. I'll earn later. I'll change later. but later is comfortable escape. Every postponed decision charges invisible interest. Lost time, lost opportunity, lost learning. Carnegie acted quickly on structural decisions. If you keep postponing what builds foundation, money will never grow roots. And there is one thought that summarizes all the others. I'm already better than before. It sounds positive, but it can become complacency. Improvement is not stability. Stability is not security. Wealth is not a point you reach. It is a pattern you maintain. If you relax too early, scarcity returns silently. If you think like this, money will never stay. Not because the world is against you. Not because the system is unfair. Not because you lack talent. But because your patterns expel what you claim you want to keep. Carnegie proved that. Wealth is built before it appears. Retention is more important than gain. Pattern is stronger than motivation. The final question is simple and uncomfortable. Do you want to make money? Or do you want to become someone capable of sustaining it? Because they are different things, and almost no one is willing to do the second. If you want money to stay, you need to accept an uncomfortable truth. It's not about how much you earn. It's about who you become while you earn it. Most people focus on increasing income. Few focus on increasing structure. And money without structure is like water in a leaking container. It enters. It circulates for a moment. And it disappears. Andrew Carnegie understood that retention comes before expansion. First you learn to keep. Then you learn to multiply. Those who try to multiply before they can maintain accelerate their own instability. There is another silent thought that pushes money away. I'll deal with this once things calm down, but calm rarely comes before organization. It is a consequence of it. If you wait for the perfect scenario to organize your finances, study investments, or structure your income, you will wait forever. The scenario improves when the pattern improves. Another invisible mistake is treating discipline as an emotion. If you only invest when you feel motivated, if you only control spending when you feel inspired, if you only study when you feel excited, you don't have a system. You have spikes, and spikes do not sustain wealth. Carnegie did not operate on emotion. He operated on principle. Principle does not depend on mood. It depends on repeated decision. And here is a point few people can tolerate hearing. Money requires personal predictability. You must become predictable to yourself. Someone who invests even when tired, who follows the plan even when bored, who says no even when pressured. As long as you are unstable, money will be unstable too. Another thought that prevents retention. If I lose, it means it wasn't meant for me. Fragile mindset. Losses are part of the building process. Carnegie faced severe crises in the steel industry, strategic mistakes, political pressures. But he did not interpret difficulty as destiny. He interpreted it as adjustment. If every mistake pushes you back into comfort, you will never accumulate enough experience to sustain wealth. There is also the addiction to comparison. So-and-so is earning more. Someone else grew faster. I'm behind. Comparison generates impulsive decisions. You accelerate when you should consolidate. You take risks when you should structure. You spend when you should accumulate. Sustainable wealth is not born from emotional urgency. It is born from strategic progression. Another destructive pattern. Confusing movement with progress. You work a lot. You are always busy. Always doing something. But busy does not mean structured. Carnegie did not aim to be busy. He aimed to increase efficiency and control. Money remains where there is clarity, not where there is productive chaos. There is also a thought that sabotages silently. When I get there, I'll relax. But wealth is not a finish line. It is constant maintenance. If you build discipline only to reach a goal, it disappears once the goal is achieved. And along with it, the money. Now pay attention to this. Money does not remain where there is internal contradiction. If you say you want stability, but act on impulse, if you say you want growth, but avoid discomfort. If you say you want freedom, but run from responsibility, inconsistency corrodes retention. Carnegie defended something simple and powerful: clear decision, consistent execution, sufficient time. Nothing spectacular, but extremely rare. And here is the final point of this section. Money never stays where it is treated as a prize. It stays where it is treated as a tool. If you see money as emotional reward, you will spend it emotionally. If you see money as strategic structure, you will position it. The difference between those who build and those who lose wealth is not in the event. It is in the post-gain pattern. What you do after the money enters. Do you consolidate or celebrate? Do you structure or expand consumption? Do you invest or upgrade appearance? Retention begins at that exact moment, and almost everyone fails there. If you think like the majority, money will behave like a visitor. If you think like a builder, it begins to behave like a partner. And the question that defines everything now is, do you want money to relieve the present or to build the future? Because the pattern you choose today defines whether it stays or leaves once again. So let's go deeper into the level that truly separates those who accumulate from those who merely circulate money. There is a structural shift that almost no one makes. Most people ask, how do I earn more? Few ask, how do I become someone who can sustain more? That difference seems subtle, but it changes everything. Andrew Carnegie did not focus only on earning. He focused on consolidating position. And position is built on three invisible pillars: predictability, structure, leverage. Without personal predictability, there is no retention. If your discipline depends on your mood, if your decisions depend on your excitement, if your investments depend on temporary confidence, you are still operating emotionally. And emotional money is unstable money. The first strategic shift is this: automate what is important and make what is impulsive more difficult. Those who build wealth do not rely on willpower. They rely on systems: automatic investment systems, spending control systems, tracking systems, decision systems. When you depend on motivation, you fail. When you depend on systems, you grow. Another profound shift: stop measuring progress by immediate results. Sustainable wealth is compound growth. Small correct decisions repeated for a sufficient period of time. The problem is that compound effect is invisible at first. You invest and barely see a difference. You save and it feels small. You study and nothing changes immediately. But internally, structure is being built. Carnegie understood the power of gradual accumulation. He expanded productive capacity before expanding lifestyle. That leads to another brutal rule: never increase your lifestyle at the same speed as your income. If you climb consumption steps with every financial increase, you freeze your growth capacity. Anyone who wants money to stay must create margin. Margin is freedom. Margin is decision power. Margin is protection against mistakes. Without margin, any unexpected event becomes regression. Now let's go even deeper. There is an identity that sustains money, and another that repels it. The identity that repels money thinks like this: I'll wait for stability before I act. The identity that sustains money thinks: I act to create stability. The first reacts. The second builds. Reacting is living in the immediate present. Building is sacrificing the present for future position. And here is something few accept. Sustaining money requires tolerating prolonged discomfort. You will seem too conservative, too demanding, too controlled. But what seems excessive today becomes advantage tomorrow. Another essential point: stop seeking intensity. Seek consistency. Intensity creates spikes. Consistency builds wealth. You don't need a perfect month. You need coherent years. Carnegie did not become wealthy because of isolated spectacular decisions. He became wealthy because of strategic decisions repeated for decades. And here comes a decisive question: are you building assets or just income? Income depends on your continuous effort. Assets continue producing without you. If everything you build depends on your constant presence, money will always be tied to your exhaustion. But when you build assets, structured businesses, consistent investment, high-value skills, money begins to work. And when it works, it stays. Another silent mistake is confusing freedom with consumption. Many people believe financial freedom means being able to spend without thinking. In reality, freedom means being able to choose without pressure. And that only comes with structure. Without structure, every decision is emotional. With structure, every decision is strategic. Now, pay close attention. Money tests your identity. When it enters, it reveals who you are. If you are impulsive, it amplifies impulse. If you are insecure, it amplifies insecurity. If you are disciplined, it amplifies discipline. That is why construction begins before gain. If you want money to stay when it arrives in greater volume, you must act today like someone who already sustains it. Control even with little. Invest even with little. Plan even with little. Because your pattern does not magically change when income increases. It simply scales. And here is the final difference between those who keep and those who lose. Those who lose see money as a solution. Those who keep see money as a tool. A solution fixes a temporary problem. A tool builds permanent capacity. If you use money to relieve tension, it leaves. If you use money to create structure, it begins to remain. And now we arrive at the most strategic point of all. Retention is not about earning more. It is about making fewer mistakes, fewer impulsive decisions, fewer premature lifestyle upgrades, less comparison, less financial ego. Every mistake avoided is wealth preserved, and preserved wealth grows. And here is the point that almost no one has the courage to admit. People who say they want wealth often do not want responsibility. Because money is not just gain. It is management. It is pressure. It is exposure. It is constant risk. When someone says, "I just want to earn more," what they are often really saying is, "I want to relieve my current pain." But wealth is not an emotional painkiller. Wealth is an amplifier. If you are already disciplined, it amplifies that. If you are already organized, it amplifies that. If you are impulsive, it amplifies that too. That is what differentiated men like Andrew Carnegie. He did not become rich because he wanted it badly. He became rich because he structured systems. He understood something most people ignore. You do not get rich through isolated effort. You get rich through repeated structure. And here comes another mindset that prevents money from staying. I need to do everything myself. That thought is fatal. Carnegie delegated. He built teams. He developed leaders. He recruited people better than himself in specific areas. He did not want to be the smartest person in the room. He wanted to be the most strategic. If you think you need to control everything, you limit growth. Because money grows through leverage. Leverage time. Leverage knowledge. Leverage capital. Leverage people. Now pay attention to this. People with a scarcity mindset believe opportunity is rare. People with a prosperity mindset understand opportunity is created. When you think, "There's no room for me. This market is already saturated. I'm too late," you are telling your brain to stop looking for solutions. But when you think, "How can I do this differently? What angle is no one exploring? What specific problem can I solve?" you activate strategic creativity. Carnegie did not invent steel. He optimized processes, reduced costs, improved logistics, mastered efficiency. And efficiency is invisible wealth. Another silent belief that keeps people stuck. Money is a matter of luck. Luck may open a door, but only competence keeps you inside. If you earn money without mental structure, you will quickly return it to the world. Now reflect. Do you treat money like a visitor or like an employee? A visitor comes and goes. An employee receives a function. Money needs a task. Investment, reserve, expansion, protection. If it has no function, it disappears. And here is something uncomfortable. Many people like the idea of looking rich. Few like the discipline of becoming rich. Looking rich is consumption. Being rich is retention. Looking rich is immediacy. Being rich is strategy. Carnegie lived with brutal discipline in his early years. He reinvested aggressively. He thought decades ahead. Do you think in decades? Or in weekends? If your mind operates in short cycles, your money will too. Now let's go even deeper. There is a huge difference between making money and building wealth. Making is an event. Building is a process. Making is external. Building is internal. You can make a large amount once, but if you do not have a structural mindset, it evaporates. And here is the question that separates amateurs from builders. Do you make financial decisions based on emotion or based on systems? Emotion wants quick reward. System wants growing stability. Emotion reacts. System calculates. Emotion buys. System invests. And until you replace impulses with criteria, money will not stay. Another dangerous thought. When I have more money, I'll learn how to manage it. No. You manage little before you manage much. If you cannot organize 1,000, you will not organize 1,000,000. Scale amplifies habit. And perhaps the most self-sabotaging thought of all. I'm not good with money. That becomes identity. And identity drives behavior. When you declare that, you authorize repeated mistakes. Carnegie started poor, but he never defined himself by scarcity. He studied, observed, asked questions, learned from more experienced businessmen. He understood that wealth begins with a trained mindset. So here is the final confrontation of this section. If you think money solves insecurity, it will never stay. If you think money requires less discipline, it will never stay. If you think wealth is about status, it will never stay. Money remains where there is structure, vision, and emotional control. And the real question is not, why can't I get rich? The question is, what thoughts am I still protecting that sabotage my prosperity? Because as long as you defend your limiting beliefs, you will continue defending your scarcity. And that is invisible to almost everyone. There is a psychological pattern called tolerance for financial chaos. Most people don't realize it, but they become accustomed to maxed out accounts, installment payments on credit cards, small manageable debts, lack of clarity about how much they actually have. That state becomes normal. And what is normal to you, you do not fight. Wealth requires intolerance for disorder. Men like Andrew Carnegie were not just ambitious. They were obsessive about predictability. They wanted to know how much comes in, how much goes out, how much returns, how much grows. Without clarity, there is no sustainable expansion. Now let's talk about something even deeper. Silent financial self-sabotage. It appears when you start evolving. You earn more. You grow. You advance. And then you raise your consumption standard at the same pace. New car. New subscription. New lifestyle. New fixed expenses. That creates a golden cage. Your income rises. Your freedom does not. Wealthy people think differently. First, they build assets. Then they raise their standard of living. First, they strengthen the foundation. Then they celebrate. Another strategic truth. Money requires coldness in critical decisions. Not emotional coldness in the human sense, but rational coldness. You cannot make important financial decisions trying to impress someone. If you buy to prove your worth, you have already lost. Carnegie understood something fundamental. Solid reputation comes from consistent results, not from momentary display. And here is one of the most important distinctions. Worker mindset versus builder mindset. The worker thinks, how much will I earn per hour? The builder thinks, how much can this system generate without depending on my hour? The worker trades time for money. The builder multiplies structures. And as long as your income depends exclusively on your direct presence, money will always have a ceiling. Now let's enter the most delicate part. Fear. Fear of losing. Fear of investing. Fear of failing. Fear of growing too much and not sustaining it. Fear creates paralysis, and paralysis generates stagnation. But the opposite is also dangerous. Impulsiveness without analysis. Sustainable wealth lies in the middle. Courage with calculation. Boldness with planning. Risk with strategy. Carnegie was not reckless. He studied markets, observed industrial trends, made decisions based on data and projections. He thought in long cycles. And here is perhaps the most decisive point of all. Strategic patience. Most people want results in months. Solid financial structures take years, sometimes decades. But once consolidated, they become almost unstoppable. If you think short-term, you act short-term. You harvest short-term. If you think long-term, you tolerate present discomfort. You invest consistently. You resist immediate temptation. And then something happens. Money begins to trust you. Yes, because money is the consequence of repeated competence. It remains where there is clarity, discipline, emotional control, strategy, long-term vision. Now let's finish with a direct and unavoidable question. If today you received 10 times more than you currently earn, would you have the mental and strategic structure to sustain it? Or would you simply increase the chaos in the same proportion? Because in the end, it is not about how much you earn. It is about who you become. If you think wealth is luck, it will not stay. If you think money fixes lack of identity, it will not stay. If you think prosperity requires less responsibility, it will not stay. But if you decide to think structurally, act strategically, control impulses, invest before consuming, build before showing off, plan before spending, then money will not be a visitor. It will be an ally. And when your mind changes, your relationship with money changes. And when your relationship changes, your financial destiny inevitably changes. The issue was never the money. It was always the mindset that sustains it.